Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing my Barcelona player ratings for the 2023-2024 season. As you guys know, about a week back, I did my Barcelona keep or sell. This is not a keep or sell. This is solely based on performances on the pitch. Okay, the way that these guys played while they were on the football pitch. Not if I want to sell them, if I want to keep them, just talking about solely the performances. Just wanted to get that out of the way so you guys get it, obviously. And I'm using the same list of players that I used for the keep or sell. I'm basically using every Barca player who was permanent on the first team except for Cubarsí. Obviously, we know Cubarsí spent the first half of the season at Barca B, but once he came up, he was a starter for us for 5 months. So obviously, had to add him onto this list. And yeah, man, we're going to talk about the performances. So you guys whether I thought they were great, decent, or bad. And yeah, just have a good time overall. I hope you guys enjoy the video, and whatever you guys agree or disagree with, like always, please let me know in the comment section down below. I'm sure it's going to be a very polarizing video. But yeah, I cannot wait to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section. And yeah, let's get into it. First up, we have Christensen, who to me is going to go into great. Christensen has been quietly probably Barca's most consistent player over the past 2 years, and this year was no different. Obviously, Christensen dealt with some injuries this year, but when he played, man, this guy was fantastic. Was doing an amazing job at center back before Cubarsí had to come in, and then he's transitioned to CDM to pivot, and you know that's when our season really changed when Christensen was playing the pivot. So to me, I have not a bad word to say about Andreas Christensen. Every Barca fan who watches the games knows how pivotal and important this guy is to our team. I love him as a player. I think he's so versatile and can do so many things. And like I said, bro, did a fantastic job at center back, did a fantastic job at pivot, playing out of position, obviously, because you know Christensen, he's played pivot before, but that's not the position that he's most comfortable with. And we saw that a lot of times in possession, he just couldn't find his footing, but he still did an amazing job. And the thing that he provided for Barca, like with the cover defensively, especially in transition, with him as the pivot, it was night and day from what we saw before when we were playing Gündoğan deep, or even sometimes even starting Romeu. Once he came in, like I said, the season changed. So for me, again, Christensen, a great player, what a great season in my opinion, and that's why he's going into great. Next up, we have Frenkie de Jong, and oh my god, I cannot wait for the comments on this one. I'm going to put Frenkie in decent. Here's the thing with Frenkie de Jong, man. Your best ability is your availability, and Frenkie is injured quite a bit. He got injured 3 different times this season. And, you know, for me, look, I think Frenkie de Jong is a fantastic player. I love him. I defend Frenkie de Jong. I think the first 6 months of the season, he was a top 3 player for us. And he got injured in like October and he missed like 2 months. But still, those first few months when he was playing, he was right. He was amazing, bro. He was so good. But then when he came back from his from that long injury that he suffered in October, I think, he just wasn't the same player every single game. Now he had games obviously where he was amazing, but he had those inconsistencies where he was like really good one game and then he just kind of fell short another game. And we saw that against PSG. I think both legs in the UCL, he kind of failed to deliver on that front. And I think Barca fans, a lot of them resent him for that, because there's this new wave with Barca fans of hating on Frenkie de Jong any chance they get. I don't understand. I think we have a gem on our hands with this guy. I think he's one of the best midfielders in the world. But again, I understand why some people don't like him, because he doesn't play the Barca brand of football. He holds onto the ball for too long. But again, I think when you look at the midfield that he had around him for the most part this year, and the fact that he was almost playing out of position for a lot of the year, because there's no natural pivot to play beside him, I think when I look at Frenkie de Jong, I think he did a really good job. Like I said, the first 6 months, to me, he was really good. One of Barca's most outstanding performers. The second half, when he came back from injury, he kind of fell off, and he just started suffering more and more injuries towards the end of the season. Obviously, got that injury against Bilbao, came back, and then got injured against Madrid. And we haven't seen him for the past month and a half at this point, but still. I'm not going to put him in great, because I think, you know, he hasn't been on the pitch that long and he was inconsistent. But I cannot even, like, he's not going to go in bad for me, because again, he had the majority of his games that he played, he was really good. Next up, we have Raphinha, who's going to go into great. Our best attacker the second half of the season, including Yamal. Raphinha was a gem this year for us. Now, the first half of the season, he wasn't great, but he more than made up for it in that second half. And this guy just, I've always been a Raphinha fan. If you guys have followed me for a long time, even back to when I didn't post on YouTube, I only posted on TikTok. You know, I've always waxed poetic about Raphinha. I was so happy when we got him from Leeds. And I think this guy is a gem, man. This season had over 10 goals and 10 assists. He was amazing, bro. In the second half of the year, like I said, against Napoli, against Getafe, against PSG, we would have won those games. If we would have gone through in those ties, it would have been because of Raphinha and what he did. And to me, he was just fantastic, man. So tenacious, always fighting for the ball, always giving it his all on the pitch, can track back, was playing left back for us against PSG, I think, playing as a fullback for us against PSG in that second leg once Araújo got sent off. And this guy never complains. And on the pitch, like I said, he was fantastic this year. A fantastic player for me. I'm really happy that Barca fans that doubted him got to see him in this way. because this guy has the potential to be one of the best wingers and most productive wingers in Europe if he's not that already. And in my opinion, he is that. So again, for me, Raphinha was one of the only bright spots of this Barca season. I'm so happy that he's on the team. And for me, no doubt about it, he's going to go into great, 100%. Next up, we have Jules Koundé, who to me is going to go into great. Koundé had a fantastic year, man. The way that this guy started off the season, by the way, he was on a fucking tear. He was like one of the best center backs in the world for the first like 3 months. Then he got injured, and when he came back from injury, he wasn't really himself. But again, remember, when Koundé was looking really, really bad was around January when the whole Barca team looked like shit. That was Barca's worst month of the season by far. But then the final 4 months of the year, transition over to right back, and he was amazing, man. He's a great player. I love Koundé so much. He takes those he makes those risky passes in attack. He's really good going forward, in my opinion. Has a great connection with Yamal like we saw this year. And defensively, I've said it 1,000 times, I'm gonna say it again. This guy neutralized Kylian Mbappe. And he held his own against Vinicius Jr., the two most dangerous wingers in the world. And Koundé dealt with them extremely well. With Mbappe, he neutralized him. He pocketed him. He was amazing, bro. And against Sevilla yesterday, he wasn't great, but still, man, for the most part of the season, this guy was fantastic. One of the best defenders in the world, in my opinion. And again, I know he doesn't like playing right back, but the job they did at right back this season was amazing, in my opinion. So I love Koundé. I love the way that he just plays with this flow about him, with this confidence, with this swagger. I know it sounds corny, but it is true. If you watch Koundé play, he has this like, I don't know, he's a really good player. He's a really good player, and you guys know that I just yapped about that was glazing, by the way, what I just said just now. I just realized that was insane glazing, the swagger and all that stuff. But you know what? It's fine. It's a Barca player. I don't mind glazing Barca players. But yeah, to me, Koundé is going to go into great. Just one of our best players this year, no doubt about it. And arguably, you could say our best defender throughout the whole season. Next up, we have Ferran Torres. I mean, Ferran to me is going to go into decent because I think people forget this guy carried our attack for like the first 4 months of the year. But Ferran is just too inconsistent, bro. He's just too inconsistent for me. I just don't think he's that good of a player. I think he's just not a Barca level player. He can come off the bench and maybe do a job for you. But for the most part, when Ferran comes off the bench, he kind of just blends in. You never really notice him on the pitch. You're just like, oh, Ferran came in? When the fuck did he come in? That's my reaction when Ferran comes in. When did he come into the pitch? But again, like I said, the first few months, he was scoring goals for fun, man. I mean, remember that game against Betis where he scored that free kick? I mean, it was like, remember the Shark, the redemption season, and the redemption arc? And it was happening. Like in real time, we were watching Ferran Torres literally be Barca's best attacker. And then he got injured against Betis, I'm pretty sure. No, it was a game maybe after Betis, I don't know. But he got injured around that time after he scored that hat-trick against Betis, if you guys remember that. And yeah, when he came back, he just he just wasn't great in my opinion. So for that reason, he's going to go into decent, but I could very easily, if I wanted to, put Ferran Torres in bad. Next up, we have Joao Félix, who to me is going to go into bad. And people think I hate on Joao Félix, and I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback for this, putting Ferran in decent and Joao in bad. Here's the fact of the matter, guys. I have different expectations for Ferran Torres than Joao Félix. Joao Félix, he got bought for $100 million. He's a Golden Boy Award winner. You have high hopes for this guy, especially the way that he came into Barca. I mean, those games against Antwerp and Betis looking fantastic. His first few games, he looked so good. And then it was just like, what are you doing, bro? If we played Atletico Madrid every single game of the year, this guy would be the Ballon d'Or winner. And Barca would have won the UCL because against Atletico Madrid, he showed up both times. He was really, really good in those games. But for the most part, he's just too inconsistent. Again, this is a guy that we see the potential with him, but he just never delivers, man. It's just so unfortunate watching Joao Félix become what he's become. Because it's just like, what are we getting out of you? You know what I mean? So for me, again, I'm not trying to hate. I promise you I'm not. I have no love or hate for Joao Félix. He's going to go back to Atletico Madrid. And if he comes back to Barca, I'll support him because he's the Barca player. I really don't care about this guy whatsoever, okay? And I'm saying that in a good way. I don't care about him in a good way or a bad way. He's just kind of there for me. But the expectations that I had for Joao Félix after seeing him, you know, obviously we thought it was, first of all, we thought it was Atletico Madrid's fault. Then we thought it was Chelsea's fault. And then he comes to Barca and he still can't regain that. It's just the inconsistencies from game to game. I think Ferran Torres peaked higher this year than Joao Félix, in my opinion. Again, you could disagree with that, but I just think he did. I think Ferran Torres had a longer time where he was better than Joao Félix. Again, I'm not trying to get into a battle between these two guys because it's a mid-off. I honestly could give a fuck. If Barca want to keep one or sell the other one, I don't care which one it is. But for me personally, with the expectations that I had of Joao Félix coming into this year, especially after seeing him those first few games, like I mentioned, Antwerp and Betis, and seeing what he did, which was really be irrelevant for this Barca team, apart from the games when we played Atletico Madrid, it's gonna go into bad for me. He just wasn't good enough, honestly. Next up, we have Pedri, who to me is gonna go into decent. I gotta be fair here, man. If I put Frankie de Jong in decent because he misses too much time with injury, I gotta put Pedri in decent as well. Pedri, the story of his career up to this point has been injuries. He's one of the best and most promising midfielders in the world, in my opinion. But whenever you think of Pedri, you think of, oh, he's always injured. And it happened again this year. He suffered a couple of injuries that obviously kept him out for an extended period of time. But like Frankie de Jong, when he was on the pitch, he always plays well. Now, Pedri also has his games where he looks really, really poor, in my opinion. I mean, he can be inconsistent at times, but the majority of the games that he plays, he's amazing, obviously. And for me, again, he's going to go into decent because he just wasn't on the pitch for that long. Just the injuries, the constant injuries just kind of like derailed him. And, he would gain some momentum, start playing better, and then he would get injured, and then he kind of have to do that whole thing again, which is, it's no fun, bro. Like when you're an athlete and you can't kind of sustain that groove and you got to deal with all these injuries, obviously it's going to knock you, it's going to knock your performances a little bit. And we saw it with Pedri, but if this guy can stay healthy a whole year, he would be our best player every single year because he's that good. But again, because of the injuries and because of sometimes his inconsistent play, I gotta put him in decent. Next up is Gavi, who to me is gonna go into great. Now, Gavi only played 3 months for Barca because obviously he got injured in November during the international break. But when Gavi was playing, he was one of our best players. Before he got injured, that's all I can judge him off. Like when he played before he got injured, he was just consistently one of our best performers. He was really, really good. And there's really not much else to say to that. I mean, Gavi was really, really good. If you watched him play, you know how good he was. He was just like an engine for this team. And you realize the moment that Gavi got injured and he wasn't in the lineup anymore, it was night and day with Barca. That intensity, that tenacity, that mean, like, that spirit that Gavi brings to the team. Barca were lacking that, and we saw that. But yeah, when Gavi played this year before his injury, to me he was playing great. Next up we have Fermin Lopez. I mean, obviously gonna go into great for a guy who plays limited minutes, obviously coming off the bench for the most part. This guy was fantastic this year. 11 goals. 11 goals for Fermin Lopez. Insane. I never saw this coming. I obviously watched him score that goal in the El Clásico against Madrid in Dallas in the preseason. But what I saw from him this year gave me so much confidence. He's such a good player, bro. He's insanely good. This year he had so many standout games against Shakhtar Donetsk. In that game in Montjuic, he was fantastic. Hit the post like 3 times, I think, but also had a goal. Obviously scored that goal against Atletico Madrid. Scored the goal against Almeria. Scored the goal yesterday against Sevilla as well. Scored so many important goals and just had this, like, he has this energy about him when he's on the pitch that I love. He's always making those third man runs into the box, always crashing the box at the right time, always progressing the ball. He's just like a typical Barca La Masia player, and I'm so happy to have him for you. But yeah, for me, Fermin was one of the few bright spots on this team this entire year. Again, like I said, I mean, when you have double-digit goals as a midfielder who's playing limited minutes, that's fucking crazy. So for me, 100% Fermin is going to go into great. One of our best players this entire year. Next up, we have Vitor Roque, who to me is going to go into decent. Now, Roque didn't really get a chance to showcase himself that much this year because he played limited minutes coming off the bench, and obviously came in January. But what I saw from Roque this year gave me a lot of hope. And I thought when Barca were planning to obviously sell him or send him out on loan, I was perplexed, flabbergasted, whatever word you want to use, because to me, what this guy showed in his limited time was a lot of good things. And he scored a couple goals coming off the bench, and he has that great energy about him where every time he comes on the pitch, he's trying to make something happen. He's either pressing really high up the pitch, he's trying to get the ball, he's trying to get the keeper to make a mistake, he's making those runs, he's asking for the ball, he's getting into a position where you can cross the ball into him. I think Roque has a lot of good qualities about him that I hope Hansi Flick can exploit, because Xavi obviously was not a fan of Roque. But again, I can't put him in great. I can't put him in bad either, because Joao Félix actually played a lot for us. Roque barely played. Again, like I said, came in January, was barely an option. Like, he spent like a month and a half where he wasn't even warming up to come into the games. So again, for me, when I look at what he did in his limited time, I thought he was decent. Cannot put him in great, obviously, because he didn't have that much of an impact. But what he did while he was on the pitch, he was 100% decent in my opinion. I know that might be a controversial take, and people might say, oh, you're putting Joao Félix in bad, but Roque in decent. I think Roque, in the time that he had on the pitch, which was a lot less than Joao Félix, he showed more in my opinion. He showed more promise than what I saw from Joao Félix, who again, like I said, is just extremely inconsistent. But yeah, to me, I know the Roque haters are going to fucking get pissed at me for that one, but he's going to go into decent for me. I think I saw enough to put him there. Next up, we have Robert Lewandowski, who to me is going to go into decent. I mean, yeah, I can't put him in bad because this guy was our top goal scorer this year. But I saw more bad from Lewandowski than I saw good. Like, what I saw from Lewa this year just didn't really make me that encouraged to see him again next season. I think he's a good player. I think he's way past his prime. I think the first half of the year, he was putrid, disgusting. It was so painful to watch this guy play. The second half of the year, he picked it up, but still, he had games where he didn't really show up. And this guy in the biggest games never shows up. Had a stinker against PSG in the second leg. Was good in the first half, but in the second half, not that great. Disappeared against Madrid like he usually does, because this guy barely shows up in any Clásico he's ever played. And yeah, for the most part, just wasn't good. Just was not good. Again, he got his goals against those teams, against the smaller teams like he always does. But when it came to play the big boys, the important games, barely ever showed up. He scored a goal against Napoli, which was great. That was mostly Sergio Roberto and Gündoğan with that, like it was a tap-in. But still, he scored that goal. Scored the goal against Atletico Madrid, one of his best goals of the season, in my opinion. That game in the Metropolitano. You guys might think I'm being a Lewandowski hater, and I very well could be. But I just don't think this guy's good enough for Barca anymore. Again, I think this year we got a lot better performance than him. People talk about how Lewandowski was one of our best players this year. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't think you watched Barca this year. If you think this guy was good, he wasn't good. He wasn't great. Sorry, he wasn't good, but he for sure wasn't great. He was decent. And again, it's because he scored the goals. But this guy, we're seeing him, and he's on a steady decline, and we saw it this year. Next up, we have Lamine Yamal, who to me is gonna go into great. This kid is 16 years old and was arguably our best attacker this whole year. What I saw from Lamine Yamal this year was fantastic. Obviously, I don't have to talk too much about Lamine Yamal, who continues to show that he's the best 16-year-old the sport has ever seen. And then I'm going to put Pau Cubarsí right next to him and great as well. Pau Cubarsí changed our defense when he came in from Barca B in January, when he got brought up, obviously, to the first team. This is a fantastic player. Both of these kids are the future for Barcelona. Two cornerstone pieces to build that team around. And yeah, man, to me, obviously, you guys know, any Barca fan knows, these two were amazing for us this whole year. And Barca would have been in a really bad position if we didn't call these guys up, because you know they for, like Cubarsí for a stretch was honestly our best center back, and Lamine Yamal, like I said, for a stretch, for more than a stretch actually, for like 85% of the season, you could argue was our best attacker. So yeah, for me, those two are going to go into great. No debate about that. Gündoğan is also going to go into great. He's going to go at the top of this tier actually, because he to me was our best player this whole year. Was the beacon of consistency. He was so amazing for us, bro. And anybody who shits on Gündoğan and says he hasn't been good, you don't watch Barca games. You don't watch Barca games. If you're shitting on Gündoğan, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. He was one of our best players this entire year. Our best player the entire year. I can think of maybe 2 bad games he had this whole year. And by the way, that was him playing out of position in a deeper role where he's not used to playing. And he still did an amazing job. It was one of the best signings of the season. And we got this guy on a free. Amazing player. Was one of the best players in Europe this whole year, in my opinion. And when Barca were going through the worst period, the best player on the team was Gündoğan. When Barca were going through their best period, the best player on the team was Gündoğan. So anybody who disrespects this guy, sorry, like I said, you're not a real Barca fan, because what I saw from him this year was fantastic. And yet, to me, he's 100% going to go into great. Our best performer this year, Gündoğan. Next up, we have Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, who to me is going to go into decent. Look, man, people will shit on Ter Stegen. I don't think he had his best year, especially compared to last year. I think he had a couple subpar performances, but this guy saved us a lot this year as well. He made so many big saves, and especially when you compare him to Iñaki Peña, our backup keeper who played for a long time this year. I mean, Ter Stegen next to him, he looks like prime fucking Neuer. He looks like Yashin and Neuer if they had a baby. Neuer, you know, he looks like Neuer if you want to call him that. I don't even know, but dude, this guy was, again, do I think Ter Stegen had his best year? No. But I'm not going to put him in bad. I just don't think he was bad. I think this guy, when he had a couple bad games, but for the most part, he saved us a lot. He could still make those big saves. Yes, like that game against Mallorca, the first game we played against Mallorca away from home, he cost us with the way he was playing out of the back. He had a couple issues with his distribution this year. I don't think he was as sharp with it, but still, he's still one of the best ball playing goalkeepers in the world. And again, I understand most Barca fans hate him. They call him Ter Stegen. And I'm not going to say he was great. Not even close to it, especially like I said, when you compare him to last year. But to say that he was bad is just being a hater for no reason. So for that reason, I'm going to put him in decent. Next up, we have Romeu, who to me is going to go into bad. One of the worst Barca players that I've ever seen. I've already talked about Romeu enough in my keeper cell. He was just poor this year, man. In preseason Romeu and first 4 games of the season Romeu, he looked like prime Busquets. We're like, oh, who the fuck is Busquets? We don't need him anymore. We have Romeu. And then slowly but surely, we start to realize how much we miss Busquets because of Romeu. And yeah, man, he's like the scapegoat for this Barca season. I don't think that's okay, because I don't think he was... obviously, he didn't play enough to be the Barca's worst player. But when he played, he was for sure Barca's worst player. So yeah, for me, again, I don't think the whole season was on Romeu. I think he was obviously part of the problem, but he wasn't the whole problem. I think Barca have a lot of issues that they have to sort out. But yeah, to me, Romeu is just going to go into bad. I mean, we know that Marcos Alonso is going to go into bad. Just a subpar player overall. Just a terrible human being and a terrible player. I have no love for this guy. When he's on the pitch, he's just awful. Sergio Roberto, he had the assist against Napoli. He had a good game against Las Palmas. He was bad for the most part. When this guy's on the pitch, he barely ever makes anything happen. He just does. And when he does, it's for the other team for the most part. I'm just not a big fan of Sergio Roberto. Again, he can come in for 10 minutes and maybe give you an assist, give you a goal. That's great. But for the most part, Sergio Roberto is just not quality enough to play for Barcelona. So for that reason, I'm going to put those 3 guys in bad. I mean, they're just not great, are they? Next up, we have Íñigo Martinez. To me, he's going to go into decent. Again, a good backup option to have off the bench. Do I think he's the best center back in the world or the best backup center back in the world? Absolutely the fuck not. Do I think he's the worst? Absolutely not. I think he's just a good squad player to have, that if you need someone to come off the bench and do a job for you, he can do that. Now, sometimes he's going to be really unaware defensively. He's just not going to know where the fuck he's standing. He just has trouble with positioning at times. But for the most part, I think he's a guy who can obviously give you some valuable minutes off the bench when you didn't, and we saw that this year. So for that reason, I'm going to put Íñigo in decent. Next up, we have Araújo. When I'm holding Araújo to his standard, which is to me one of the best center backs in the world, this year he was bad. Just did not have a good year whatsoever. He was just so uninspiring this year, and it was just weird to me because he had good stretches, obviously, but for the most part, Araújo was subpar this year. He had like 2 months in the whole 7 or 8 month season where he was good. Most notably that stretch where Barca were playing really, really well in February and March. He was amazing for us, but still, I mean, he just wasn't good enough. He just wasn't good enough for Barca this year, and we saw that, man. We saw that this year with the way that he was playing. He left a lot to be desired, in my opinion. I didn't expect to see a season from Araújo like this. He had a lot of bad moments, and also, I'm putting him in bad because, let's be honest here, guys, he cost us that game against PSG. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He was the sole reason why Barca lost that game. And when you have that much culpability, where you're, like, for one of the worst losses in the history of this club, I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. When you look at the path we had to make a UCL final, and we couldn't do it because Araújo got sent off because he decided to tackle Bradley Barcola, that to me is gonna put him in bad. It wasn't good enough, man. It just wasn't. Next up, we have João Cancelo. Look, man, it's weird because I'm gonna put him in decent. This guy, if the season would have ended in March, he would have been in great. He would have been one of our best players. But the last 3 months, he just completely fell off the fucking map. I don't know what the fuck happened to João Cancelo. He was awful for the last 2 months of the year. Really, really was awful. Both defensively and going forward. Which is something you never expect from João Cancelo, which is to be bad going forward. But Barca for the last 3 months were basically playing with 10 men when Cancelo was on the pitch. Because he provides nothing for you defensively, and he was providing nothing for you going forward. His best attacking performance was the one against Sevilla yesterday. And that happened in the last game of the season. So again, to me, I can't put him in bad because, when he first came in, this guy was one of our best players. Like I said, he was playing amazing. I was just like, I wasn't even considering giving him back to Man City. I was like, Barca needs to buy this guy permanently, need to bring him in or bring him in on another year loan. And now I'm at a point where if he goes or if he stays, I'm indifferent about it. I don't care if he goes or if he stays. And if you have to ask me to pick one, I would lean towards him leaving. Because that's how bad he was throughout the last months of the year. But again, I can't put him in bad because for the most part, I think he had a decent season. Just when it mattered most, he just came up really, really short. And finally, you have Balde, who to me is going to go into bad. Look, man, Balde, like Gavi, got injured, had a season-ending injury in January. He played more than Gavi, but still didn't play he didn't play the whole season. He just played half of it. But still, when Balde was on the pitch this year, he was really, really underwhelming. I would say Balde, before he got injured, he was Barca's most underwhelming player this whole year. He was awful when he played. He was awful when he played before he got injured. He was really, really bad. Don't let people, don't forget about that, by the way, guys. Balde was really, really bad. Defensively, and most notably going forward. I mean, this guy, his crossing ability was so shit this year. It was just weird to watch him. But yeah, to me, when Balde, the limited minutes that he had, or the limited time that he played, he didn't really show out. He actually kind of regressed, in my opinion, especially compared to last season when he was one of the best fullbacks in the world when Barca won the league. So this year, in the time that he played, he was bad, and that's why I'm putting him in bad. And that, guys, is the end of the tier list. I think this is a pretty fair tier list, in my opinion. I don't think there's anything crazy here. I mean, people might point to me putting João Félix or Cancelo, or not Cancelo, sorry, or Araújo in bad and be like, that's crazy. I don't think it is. Again, I'm holding those guys to their standard where they're supposed to be, and I just don't think they lived up to that standard that they have. And Balde as well, especially, like I said, what we saw from him last year, he just came up short. People might say Ter Stegen deserves to be in bad. Maybe Ferran Torres deserves to be in bad. People might think that maybe I'm being too nice to Lewandowski. He deserves to be in bad. I was this close to putting Lewandowski in bad, by the way, but I just couldn't do it because he obviously was our top goal scorer. I think that'd be unfair. People might think Cancelo deserves to be in bad. I don't know, but I think the grade tier is pretty spot on, man. I mean, when you look at Gündoğan, Christensen, Raphinha, Koundé, Gavi, Fermin Lopez, Yamal, and Cubarsí, you cannot say those were not our best players this year. They just were. And then the decent tier, again, like I said, Roque didn't get enough minutes. Pedri and Jong were injured. Ferran is too inconsistent. Ter Stegen had his ups and downs. Íñigo, like I said, I gave my reasoning as to why. If you guys agree or disagree, like always, like I said, please let me know in the comment section down below. I'm not going to ramble any more about these guys because I just spent 25 minutes doing so. But yeah, man, if you guys like the video, let me know in the comment section down below. And yeah, I love every single one of you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.